I have watched the tape and I've built the scouting reports, but it is now time to test what I think against the data. This is the eye test versus the numbers, where I put the eye test on trial and let the analytics do the cross-examining. And in this episode of the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast, I am going to see how my scouting notes compare to the numbers and how it relates to Dylan Harper. Big shout out to each and every person that has made the Locked On NBA Big Board podcast your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Rafael Barlowe, and I'm excited to start this new series titled The Eye Test versus the Numbers. But before I get into this episode, I want to let you know that it is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. If you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment, and click the bell so you can be notified every time we drop an episode, because the Locked On NBA Big Board crew is coming at you 5 days per week. I think that we are, I'm a little biased, but I think that we are your daily source, or the best daily source for NBA draft content. And also, your favorite NBA team has a newsletter. Check it out at lockedondaily.com. It is the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox every single day. So check it out at Locked On Daily. All right. I've been thinking about this series for a while. I know that there are a lot of people that really love the analytics and get into the numbers. I am an eye test guy. I trust my eyes. I trust what I see on film, and I use the analytics as a tool to kind of back up what I'm seeing. Now, I also know that analytics don't always tell the full story. I mean, there are times where you need to add some context into the numbers. But in this episode or this series, I'm going to share my scouting notes on different prospects, and then I'm going to go back and look at the numbers and see if the numbers back up what I'm seeing or if they tell me that I am totally wrong. And the first prospect that I want to start this series with is Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper is the projected number 2 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. I haven't started with Cooper Flag because he is still playing. It is April 3rd, and Duke is in the Final Four, so his numbers are not yet finished. But Dylan Harper, he's been home for a few weeks. His team did not make the NCAA tournament, so I have the final stats and final numbers to choose from. All right, so let's get started with my notes on Dylan Harper. He is a 6'6", 220-pound point guard. I know he's been listed as a combo guard, but I think he is absolute best with his ball in his hands, even though I think he can play both positions. But I'm going to list him as a point guard. He is the number 2 prospect on my rankings on my big board. So whether it is my big board or my mock draft, Dylan Harper is going to be number 2. And unless something drastic changes, you can put that in Sharpie. You can write that down. It's not in pencil. I doubt if it is erased. Harper had a strong freshman season, averaged 19.4 points per game, which was 3rd out of all the freshmen in NCAA. He averaged 4.6 rebounds, 4 assists per game, 1.4 steals. He had some absolute monster performances, had like back-to-back 30-point games in November. He shot 48% from the floor, 33% from 3, and 75% from the foul line. All right, so I'm going to get into my notes here and my notes on Dylan Harper. So I had notes coming into college, and then what I did was I went back and watched the film, and I did my post-freshman year notes. Some guys, the notes are very similar. Some guys, the notes are a little bit different, but that all kind of adds into a scouting report, because you never know what a guy showed in high school that he may not have been able to show in college, or maybe it's a situation to an area where he was strong at in high school and it just did not translate to college. But here are my notes on Dylan Harper. I have that he has excellent positional size at 6'6". He can play both guard spots, but I think he's best with the ball in his hands. He's poised and patient, plays with good burst. He can get to his spots. He can blow by you or power through you. So if it is a bigger defender, he has the first step to get by the defender. And if it's like a smaller, pesky guard that can match him step by step, he could turn it into bully ball. I mentioned that he knows how to use his body and his strength to his advantage. He has a shifty handle. He can change speeds and change directions. He loves to get downhill. He consistently is able to get 2 feet in the paint. He's a creative scorer off the bounce. He's good in pick and rolls, has the feel to split pick and rolls. I don't know why that's like one of my favorite plays. I love seeing guards that are able to split the trap out of pick and rolls. And usually it's like a smaller guard that is able to get low, but Harper is able to split pick and rolls at 6'6", 220 pounds. And I have in my notes that I think that he should look better with NBA spacing, because if you watch any Rutgers games, they just did not have a lot of spacing. He played in some tight areas. I believe that Dylan Harper is a better athlete than he's given credit for. I've seen some scouting reports or some people question his athleticism, and I don't think that's wrong. I think that's valid, because coming into the season, I question his athleticism. But after watching him play, I'm seeing that he's able to get into the paint, and all athleticism isn't just based off of guys having a 40-inch vert. He has speed, burst, coordination, agility. I think that he is a really good athlete. I have in my notes also that he's a good rebounder from the backcourt. He is the type of player that should be able to stuff the stat sheet in the NBA with points, rebounds, assists, and steals. Now, the concerns that I had for Dylan Harper were that he has no floater game. Very, very rarely uses floaters or soft touch finishes around the rim, but he can consistently get to the paint, but it's always right at the basket. I would like to see him add like a floater or a soft touch finish. And then another concern that I have is that a very large amount of his jump shots are pull-ups and off the dribble. And according to the eye test, he is not a very efficient shooter off the dribble. Part of that is because he has a low release. I know coming into his freshman season, I had some concerns about the low release. I thought that just that half a split second, especially in the NBA, a open jumper could end up being a contested jumper because the release is low. Now, I will say James Harden doesn't have the highest release. Trae Young has a low release, and Tyrese Maxey has a low release. So those are 3 players that have been very, very successful in the NBA without having, like the textbook high release shot. And so I do think that that is somewhat of a concern, and one of the reasons why Dylan Harper's field goal percentage, at least based off of my eye test, that he wasn't an efficient shooter off the dribble. The NCAA tournament is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who is cutting down the nets. So stay in on the action in the Final Four. You have games on Saturday and the championship game on Monday. So there's always something exciting to bet on. And the FanDuel app is simple. When you win, you get paid instantly. There is no waiting around. So check it out. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the Final Four action. FanDuel.com, the official partner of the NBA and Locked On. All right, now I gave you my scouting report. Now it is time to dive into the numbers. Right, so when I did a deep dive on Dylan Harper's numbers, now I will be honest with you, I understand analytics, but I'm not like deep in the analytics. Like there's some guys that can pull out data and charts, and it just feels like it's like they're speaking another language to me. So when I do this series, and if you're not like heavy on analytics, I'm going to make it pretty simple for you to understand. I'm not going to use Darko or LeBron, and I don't even know what the acronym stands for, but it's an acronym that has like some really deep advanced analytics numbers. But I'm just going to break it down so my mom would be able to understand. Right now, let's get into Dylan Harper's play types. 30% of his plays were as the pick and roll ball handler, where he ranked in the top 82 percentile in college basketball, and he shot 43% from the floor as the pick and roll ball handler. Now, when he operated as the pick and roll ball handler, he loved the high pick and roll. So out of that 30%, about 73% of his possessions as the pick and roll ball handler was from the high pick and roll. In transition, 22% of his possessions were in transition, where he ranked as good. But it was in the top 55 percentile in college basketball. The majority of the plays in transition were as the ball handler. Did not have a lot of plays where he was the transition finisher, but he shot 52% in transition. That is a number that I think should be a little bit higher. But overall, when he shot twos, he was about 68% from the floor in transition. The problem that kind of weighed the numbers down a little bit was he had 35 three-point attempts in transition. Now, for me, I love the modern NBA. I'm a big fan of the modern NBA. But if there's one thing about the modern NBA that I do not like, is I do not like transition threes. I would much rather see a guy go to the basket. I actually had this conversation with the NBA executive who has a son that plays college basketball. The NBA executive is, somewhat old school. And he was saying that he was talking about how he's yelling at his son for leaving points on the board for not running the floor and filling the lanes in transition. And he mentioned that, or the son mentioned that his college coach prefers him to shoot threes in transition. So it's totally a big contrast in philosophy, and I'm going with the dad here. I would much rather see a guy fill the lanes and get a layup and dunk in transition as opposed to shooting the three. All right, I digress. Dylan Harper in isolation, he only had about 15% of his possessions came in isolation. He was good. He shot 37% in isolation. When it comes to spot up opportunities, which is why I think he can play on and off the ball, which is only about 13% of his possessions, but he was good. He was in the top 86 percentile in college basketball, shot about 45% in spot up isolations. Cutting, did not have a lot of possessions where he was used as an off the ball cutter, but in those opportunities, he was excellent in the top 91 percentile, and he finished 80% of his possessions. Now, an area that I think Dylan Harper could be really effective in down the line, but did not get hardly any opportunities in college basketball, is in the post. I am a huge fan of the post up, especially guards that can post, because guards, quite naturally, they're going to have a feel as a passer. And I think if you are a guard that can post up and draw double teams out the post, I think it unlocks your shooters and it just creates different advantages. Luka Doncic, one of my favorite players. I love seeing Luka operate out of the post. If you want to go back old school, I liked when there were like smaller point guards that posted up. Andre Miller. I'm a huge Andre Miller fan. I thought Andre Miller was able to pile up so many assists because sometimes he required a double team in the post. And if you didn't double, he was able to punish you. And so I think that Dylan Harper, with his size and his strength and his just natural feel as a passer, I think he could be a threat in the post. I feel like James Harden could be like that too, but James doesn't really post up. And James doesn't really shoot a lot of mid-range jumpers also, which, it could have a lot to do with him spending the majority of his career playing under Daryl Morey teams. And Daryl Morey is known for analytics. And of course, if you've been keeping up with modern basketball, the numbers and the analytics tell you that the mid-range shot is not an efficient shot. All right, now let's dig into the numbers. All right, overall, as far as shooting, Dylan Harper shot 32% on jumpers. That is a number that I would like to see go up. 32%, which means he 3 out of 10. He's missing around 70% of his jump shots. Now, when you dig a little deeper into the numbers, you see that he shot 39% on catch and shoot jumpers. I'll take that. That's good. And if you go more, you find out that he shot 36.8% on catch and shoot threes. Now, if you think about basketball and the way it's played today, you're not going to get, especially at guard, you're not going to get a bunch of catch and shoot jumpers inside the paint. So the number that is the most important to me is the catch and shoot threes. And again, 36.8% on catch and shoot threes. I will take that. That is a good number. It shows that he can play on or off the ball. You can put him on the floor with a dominant ball handler or a point guard or somebody else that can draw double teams. I think Dylan Harper is going to be effective. Or at least the numbers show that he's going to be effective off the catch. But when you dig even deeper, not a large sample size, but he was 13 of 26 on uncontested threes. So he knocked down 50% of his uncontested threes. Now let's talk about why the percentage is only 32%. Dylan Harper took 212 jumpers this year. 150 of his 212 jump shots were off the dribble. He only shot 28% on pull-up jumpers. So a large percentage of his jump shots were off the dribble, and he only took 28% of them. So what this tells me, when I did my scouting report and my notes, I did not have shot selection as one of my concerns for Dylan Harper. But now I have to ask myself, is his shot selection questionable when the majority of his jumpers are off the dribble and he's only shooting 28% on pull-up jumpers? And then he took a lot of threes off the dribble. He only shot 29% on pull-up threes off the bounce. So the question I have to ask myself is Dylan Harper's shot selection, is that something that we need to question? Because according to the numbers, possibly, but it also depends on how you view the numbers and in context. All right, now let's talk about Dylan Harper at the rim. This is where he was absolutely phenomenal. He shot 67% at the rim. And if you go into the numbers, because sometimes the at the rim numbers can be skewed a little bit because some guys can pile up numbers as far as their efficiency in transition. So when you break it down to the half court, Dylan Harper makes 65% of his shots at the rim in the half court, and he makes 62% of his layups in the half court. The reason the numbers are a little bit different is because there are guys that can, again, have solid numbers at the rim, but if you take away their dunks, and this is mostly related to bigs, if you take away their dunks, their numbers are a little bit off. And with Harper, he was pretty much consistent when he was finishing at the rim, whether it was dunks or layups, but he shot 62% on layups at the rim in the half court. And so that pretty much matches up with the eye test. When I looked at the eye test, I talked about this guy that can consistently get 2 feet in the paint, and he's a solid finisher. Now, the thing about Dylan Harper is he's not like a crazy like vertical finisher, even though he does have some, I think he had like 8 dunks this year. He can make some plays above the rim, but that is not his calling card. But for him to be such an efficient finisher at the rim without being a high flyer that's jumping over the top of guys and without having a soft touch finish arsenal, doesn't shoot a lot of floaters, I think that really bodes well for him in the NBA. And then, like I mentioned, Rutgers did not have a lot of floor spacing. He was the number 1 player on the scouting report. I'm sure every scouting report coming into the season said, keep Dylan Harper out the paint, stop him from getting in the lane. And he was able to consistently get in the lane. Daylight saving time, it snuck up on us again. And if you are feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-hour energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time to have fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. So whether you are staying up late watching the NCAA tournament or the NBA, which the NBA playoffs are coming up soon, which means I know I'm going to be staying up late, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up when you need it. So if you've been staying up late watching basketball, or you are looking to take advantage of the longer days, whether you want to go outside for a hike or a bike ride, I would suggest grabbing a 5-hour energy drink. So head to 5hourenergy.com, to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12 pack or even your own 24 pack, and you can have it delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery store or convenience store. They are everywhere and easy to find. So stock up today and stay energized. The areas for improvement for Dylan Harper, I think it one starts with becoming a better pull-up shooter. I think if he becomes a more consistent pull-up shooter, you're talking about a 3-level scorer in the NBA. Yes, he can get to the rim, he can finish. He's a good shooter, shooting off the catch. He will need to improve or at least get the numbers up to be a little bit more efficient shooting threes off the dribble. But the biggest knock is, again, the mid-range jumper, 28% on pull-up jumpers. If he can get that number up, I think he has the makings to be a 3-level scorer. And it is the reason why I have him number 2 on my big board. But with Harper, I love the size. I love the offensive creativity. I love the ball handling. I love the fact that he can play on and off the ball. And again, when you look at the numbers, it says he only shoots 33% from 3. I think that the numbers, when you dig deeper and when you really look at the numbers and analyze them, you understand that the percentage is brought down because he's such an inefficient shooter off the dribble. So with that being said, if I have him at number 2, obviously I think that he is a pretty safe pick. I've seen a lot of different comparisons for Dylan Harper. I know one comparison was Cade Cunningham. I mean, I think stylistically they may look alike. I mean, as far as just like being bigger guards, I mean, Cade is bigger. The complexion, the hair, not necessarily being like elite, high flying athletes. I think Cade is a better passer. But what's interesting about Cade Cunningham, he had a negative assist to turnover ratio after his freshman year at Oklahoma State, and Dylan has a positive assist to turnover ratio. But I like Dylan Harper. I really like him a lot. And I feel like the numbers and the eye test were on the same page. Now, as I go deeper into the series, I think it's going to be totally different. But I do think that with Dylan Harper, my eye test said he can get to the paint, and my eye test said that he struggles as a pull-up shooter, and that was correct. All right, now as far as areas that I would like to see Dylan Harper work on this offseason, become a more efficient shooter, which, you know, you can pretty much plug that in for everybody, but I would say become a more efficient shooter off the bounce, especially in the mid-range. Again, if he is able to become an efficient mid-range shooter, then he turns into a very, very dangerous 3-level scorer. And if he can continue to make strides as a shooter off the catch, which will allow him to play with various lineups, play with the ball dominant guard, maybe even in the second unit split time, I think that definitely helps him out. But for the most part, I felt like the eye test and the analytics were on the same page. Well, that wraps up this episode of the eye test versus the numbers, where I compared what I see out of my own eyes and the analytics as it relates to Dylan Harper. Stay tuned for the next episode where I cover his teammate, Ace Bailey, who I think is the number 3 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. He's number 3 on my big board, but he's somewhat divisive. But let's find out if the numbers and my scouting report are on the same page with Ace Bailey. Stay tuned. Do not miss it. Once again, it's Rafael. Do not forget to hit that subscribe button. And I am